Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special live coverage entitled Kuwait and the ICI, 2 decades of cooperation, presented by your host, Ahmed Al-Wasmi. An episode preceding the pivotal week in global affairs at the UN Future Summit unfolded with discussions on the crucial topics which shaped our world's future. From climate change and sustainable development to global security and economic cooperation. This week's summit addressed some of the most pressing challenges faced by the nations today. At the forefront of these discussions is the state of Kuwait, whose presence in the summit highlighted its growing influence as a champion of diplomacy and international collaboration. Kuwait's active role in promoting peace, security, and dialogue is a testament to its long-standing commitment to fostering global stability. Not only does Kuwait shine in the diplomatic stage, but as the host of the NATO Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, which is ICI, regional center, it serves as critical link between regional and the global security efforts. Tonight we will explore Kuwait's significant contribution to the summit, its leadership in regional cooperation, and how its strategic partnership through the ICI elevates its standing on the world stage. Stay with us. We will break down Kuwait's role in shaping the future of the global diplomacy right here on KTV2. Well, it seems that I have to keep going because this is a very significant situation. Join me in the studio, Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi. He's a renowned political analyst who will help us unpack the significance of the ICI partnership and provide insight on the current and the future state of Kuwait's NATO relationship. But before all of that, Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi is right here, and we will talk to him right after this break.
The state of Kuwait and the United Nations. More than 6 decades of cooperation to achieve international peace and stability. His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Al-Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, may Allah protect him, is Kuwait's voice to the world. From the platform of the UN General Assembly, urging for international harmony and existence. The State of Kuwait and the United Nations. A march of cooperation and partnership.
The representative of His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, may Allah protect him, delivered a historic speech before the Future Summit at the United Nations headquarters in New York. During his speech, His Highness reiterated the importance of youth to build our future, stating that today the world requires work to introduce serious and practical changes in the global economic governance system and financial safety nets, international tax cooperation, reform multilateral development banks, and address the problem of sovereign debt. His Highness then stressed on the genocide that has claimed the lives of more than 41,000 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, the majority of whom are women and children, and the inability of the Security Council to stop this aggression, highlighting that the war is a clear and unfortunate example of the approach of double standards in the application of international law, which should have no place in our future. As for Chapter 5 of the Summit Charter, entitled Transforming Global Governance, and specifically the paragraphs related to the process of reforming the Security Council, His Highness called on the international community to push more towards negotiation and work to accelerate the pace of reforming our international system, to reflect our current reality and current challenges in order to reach a comprehensive, effective, transparent, and accountable Security Council. In another context, the representative of His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince, stressed the need for all member states to unite and cooperate in advancing and developing the work of the United Nations and increasing its efforts to establish the foundations of international security and stability and achieve the goals of sustainable development. The representative of His Highness the Emir, His Highness the Crown Prince, Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah's speech at the Future Summit reflects Kuwait's enduring legacy as a beacon of diplomacy and global cooperation. In his thoughtful address, His Highness underscored Kuwait's unwavering commitment to fostering peace, development, and equitable governance on the world stage. By highlighting Kuwait's role in addressing challenges such as economic reform and international peace, he reaffirmed the nation's pivotal role in championing multilateralism.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is well known that Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi is not new to KTV2. He's our friend and he is appreciated wherever he goes. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Always looking forward to be with you.
Pleasure to be on.
Sir, yesterday and the day before yesterday, the state of Kuwait participated in the summit, which was held in New York, and it's all about the world and it's all about the United Nations, and also they were talking about the sustainable development, security, how to pave the road to the new generations, and etc. I believe that you are well known of what happened. We would like from you to tell us exactly how you perceived the whole thing and your own perspective.
Well, I think the attendance of His Highness the Crown Prince in the United Nations as a representative of His Highness our Amir represents, I think, a historic moment, because Kuwait has always been known as one of the most devoted and committed members of the United Nations. In addition to its generous financial support to the United Nations committees and as an international organization, Kuwait has always been a very positive partner with the United Nations, in addition to recommitting itself to upholding international law and convention. Kuwait also underlines the need for the United Nations to reform itself, especially the Security Council. In his speech, the Crown Prince underlined the importance of reforming the United Nations Security Council to represent the geographical distribution in our current day world. In other words, the speech called for a reassessment of the designation of countries as members of the Security Council. In addition to this, the speech also emphasized the need for the United Nations to be more inclusive, especially of the emerging developing nations, either in Asia or in Africa. So the speech itself fundamentally underlines Kuwait's continuous commitment to its obligations toward the United Nations. In addition to this, it calls for a reform of the United Nations as an international institution, and especially the Security Council to be more inclusive and also to represent, if you like, emerging nations in Africa. So based on the geographical mass of these nations, today the Security Council consists of 5 permanent members, and they have the right to use the veto if the resolution of the United Nations resolution goes against, let's say, their national interest. But according to our Kuwaiti vision, we understand that all members of the United Nations should have an equal say in the international arena. Doesn't mean that a small country has only limited power in its representation of the United Nations, but I think the speech underlined also the need for many developing nations to understand that in our new changing world, it's not only economies or let's say military power that determines one's status in the world. But if you are a member of the United Nations, you should have an equal right as in any other nation. So I think the speech itself.
Do you think that
yes.
the huge the entity of the whole UN situation is going to allow the small countries to have their own say on the international arena. Let's say if they are going to have a decision, they will listen to the small countries. Do you think it might happen or not?
I think it will happen very soon, I think, because because I think the nature of the status of countries as members of the United Nations is changing. I think the changing element here is the rising and emerging Asian and African economies. In other words, the determining factor for the future of the United Nations might not only be the military power of this or that country, but its economic and industrial power.
Do you have to have influence in order for you to gain the status of you are going to, express your feelings towards some kind of resolution?
Well, I think the objective of the United Nations has been known historically as an international institution that should, by law, by its own laws and convention, represents equally all countries members of the United Nations. And thus, the idea of the Security Council and the idea of the veto of the permanent members of the Security Council will gradually change, because in today's world, what determines your contribution to the United Nations is your financial support of the institution. And for example, Kuwait is known as one of the most generous,
the leader in generosity.
Yeah, if not the leader in internationally in contributing to the United Nations agencies, especially in regards to humanitarian assistance to the people in need, either in Africa or in Asia and other countries. So I think the Crown Prince speech represents the aspirations of many African leaders and Asian leaders for a change of the nature of the United Nations and the upholding and recommitment of the members to really uphold the international law. And you can read this, of course, within the context of what happens to our brethren in Palestine and also in Lebanon. So the Kuwaiti speech basically highlighted the need for more intervention of the United Nations to find a resolution to this humanitarian crisis.
Now, Mr. Al-Janfawi, His Highness the representative of the Emir, Sheikh Michel Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Sabah Khalid Al-Hamid Al-Sabah, may Allah protect him. He went over there and represented the Emir as well as the state of Kuwait. And he had some kind of discussion, and he delivered the speech regarding the second chapter of the Charter for the Future and the international peace and security. Also, he talked about the Kuwait and its role, about, just like you mentioned, about the humanitarian role and being generous to the rest of the world. The Kuwait will be at the front, at the threshold of the whole situation to give the hand to the needy people. Now, from your own perspective, regarding all of that, how can the UN General Assembly balance these aspects? Do you think that they take it under consideration and they appreciate everything that we are doing in the world?
I think the speech of His Highness the Crown Prince underlined many factors and issues that need to be addressed by the United Nations. For example, he mentions also the reform within the institution itself, the international institution, in either giving more equal opportunities to developing countries and developed countries to have more representation in the United Nations. In addition to this, there needs to be a discussion of the role of the Security Council in regards to resolving international issues. In other words, there needs to be a recommitment by all members of the United Nations to imagining a United Nations that is more representative, that is more equal, that goes against, meaning in its inner workings, that goes against discrimination against countries because of their, if you like, wealth, or because of their location, because of their military power. I think the Kuwaiti speech underline the aspirations of not only Kuwait and the Gulf region or the Middle East, but the whole, smaller nations, those who are thinking that the United Nations should reform itself. In addition to this, I think the speech itself highlighted the need for the United Nations to do its own internal reform, especially in regards to basically balancing the, let's say, the financial contribution of Kuwait with its role within the United Nations. In other words, if you have a country like Kuwait that is more committed financially to supporting the agencies of the United Nations, it should have more representation than, say, a country that does not pay, say, its financial contributions. So I think the argument here that Kuwait wishes the United Nations to address is this imbalance within the United Nations as an international institution on how it deals with, let's say, regional issues. Say in the conflict within the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, we noticed just recently that the United Nations seems to be powerless in how it deals with these issues. It doesn't have the power to reach a resolution, a final resolution for a ceasefire. Why? Because one of the permanent members of the Security Council will issue a veto, if you like, determining the nature of the conflict, or extending the nature of the conflict. In addition to this, the United Nations, I think, needs to look at its ability in resolving the catastrophic issue that is happening in Palestine, the massacre and the genocide of the Israelis of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And when you look at the say the reaction of the United Nations, even though that it offers humanitarian aid, but it could not.
Their reaction is so humbling. It does not even reaches the high expectations of the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think this also is caused by the internal complications of the administration of the United Nations itself. In other words, the United Nations can only do so much to resolve the deadly conflict in Palestine. And this is because we need to, that is why, because we need to reform the Security Council to be more representative of other countries, especially the Middle Eastern countries that has always been, if you like, the victims of the, if you like, of the
they failed
changing
the Palestinians and
nature
also
of
they
the
failed
world.
the Sudanese, because the Sudan's have its own conflict, didn't even reach and help them politically.
But politically, I think the Crown Prince, His Highness,
talking about the United Nations.
Yeah, His Highness underlined the need for the United Nations to be more constructive in its approach toward resolving regional and, if you like, international conflicts. And within the speech itself, you also notice that there is a need for the United Nations to be more proactive in basically, say, as you mentioned earlier, the conflict in Sudan. No one pays that much attention to Sudan since the beginning of the conflict in Palestine. And when you look at the victims of the civil war in Sudan, it's actually more catastrophic to what we witness, in genocide against our brothers in Palestine. So the United Nations needs to balance its acts, and this is, I think, the Kuwaiti demand, and also the demand of the Gulf region countries and the Middle Eastern countries for the United Nations to be more active, more approachable, more able to help those who are in need, not being restricted by the veto of the 5 members of the Security Council.
Since the inception of the state of Kuwait, always promotes peace and security. And if there were a conflict between brothers or probably friendly countries, they always promote the dialogue, not the armed forces or something else. Now, if you compare these principles of the state of Kuwait, what motivates the state of Kuwait to seek closer ties with NATO?
I think since its independence in 1961, Kuwait has always seen itself as an important or playing as an important role in the region. In Kuwait's relationship with NATO, Kuwait was the first country actually to join the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative in 2004, and thus Kuwait became a non-member, if you like, partner to this military European Western organization. And I think our relationship with NATO guarantees more security to Kuwait, and also it guarantees, if you like, a more positive and constructive cooperation with the most powerful military agency in our current world, if you like. And NATO itself historically has contributed positively to to its relationship with Kuwait, say with the establishment of the regional center of NATO in Kuwait in 2017. To this day, we witnessed deeper cooperation, especially deeper security cooperation between the state of Kuwait and the NATO organization.
Dr. Al-Janfawi, always a pleasure to have you. That's why I'm going to grant you this break, because we have a special report. Depending on your ideas, it's going also to back you up with this. So stick around and I'll come back to you.
ICI was launched in 2004 and provides a partnership hub to promote security cooperation between NATO and partner countries in the Gulf region. 4 countries, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, have joined the initiative, which celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. Since then, the ICI has advanced politically and in other practical terms. While the political dialogue has grown to include high-level meetings, and the practical dimension has been progressively improved through the introduction of new coalition tools and activities, as well as through the contribution of these countries to NATO-led operations and missions. The NATO ICI Regional Center, aka NERC, established in Kuwait in 2017, acts as an international hub to enhance practical cooperation between NATO and the GCC partners, to reach common understanding of security challenges and increase interoperability and standardization for closer cooperation. The hub promotes practical cooperation in various areas, including strategic analysis, civil preparedness, military-to-military cooperation, and public diplomacy through discussion panels called NATO Talks.
The purpose of my visit to Kuwait now is twofold. On the one hand, it is about engaging with the government of Kuwait on our partnership program that we have just agreed at NATO, looking at the priorities that Kuwait has identified for our dialogue and cooperation. That includes political dialogue, it includes education and training, it includes military interoperability, to mention just a few. Counterterrorism is another area that we've identified. So engaging with the government of Kuwait at this point in time. But another very important point for me is to discuss with colleagues on the Kuwaiti side the cooperation here at the NATO ICI Regional Center. The center here in Kuwait is very special. It's the only NATO institution in the region. We're very proud of it. Last year on the Kuwaiti side, there was a change, and the responsibility for the center was taken on by MOFA, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And now, together with our Kuwaiti partners, we want to restart the center. We want to turn it into a platform for dialogue, for education, for training, and I think we're off to a very good start.
The ICI is based on 6 essential principles: non-discrimination, self-differentiation, two-way engagement, non-imposition, diversity and complementary, to other international initiatives in the region. The initiative is a strategic platform through which NATO allies and ICI partners can meet regularly and discuss security issues of common concern and build mutual trust. It allows the alliance to engage with experienced and knowledgeable partners to share best practices. It also represents an opportunity for members of the Gulf Cooperation Council to engage with NATO on security matters. The State of Kuwait is the first to sign the transit agreement in the Gulf with NATO in 2012, allowing for the movement of military equipment through the country. The State of Kuwait is also part of the Shared Awareness and Deconfliction (SHAD) mechanism, an international initiative to combat piracy in the Indian Ocean. Since its inception, cooperation between NATO and ICI partners has increased, where individual operational plans for each country are based on areas of activity featured in the Partnership Cooperation Menu (PCM), such as defense transformation, civil-military cooperation, the fight against terrorism, and civil preparation.
Well, folks, we're still coming to you live from KTV2, and this is a very historical thing because we are back with Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi. He's not only a friend, he's one of the members of the family of KTV2. Thank you, sir, so much for sticking around. Sir, we're talking about the NATO and the ICI, which established in the state of Kuwait back in 2017. And there's a relationship between the countries of the NATO and the GCC countries, and specifically the state of Kuwait. Now, from your own perspective, how do you see the dynamics between NATO and its Gulf partners?
I think the membership of Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Qatar in this initiative contributed to strengthening the security of the region, especially our Gulf region. Of course, the other Gulf region countries play also a role in this military and security cooperation. In addition to the exchange of information, strategic planning, military training, and military cooperation, security cooperation, dealing with issues of, say, regional security and also, say, terrorism and so on. So I think there are different fronts in which the Gulf countries and especially Kuwait can contribute in strengthening the regional security in its cooperation with NATO. NATO considers the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf region countries as very important partners in the region. And historically, Kuwait, as I mentioned earlier, was the first non-partner member of this initiative. And in addition to this, of course, we as in Kuwait will benefit from this military cooperation, especially in regards to dealing with issues of concern, especially issues in regards to security, dealing with threats of terrorism, for example, political dialogue between the NATO and Kuwait. And
when
also,
you say that Kuwait will benefit as far as the defense capability is concerned, could you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? Mean that we are going to have some kind of joint maneuvers, going to have some exercise training militarily, something like that?
Yeah, actually, we held military training with NATO very recently in June, especially in regards to the maritime security, if you like, cooperation between Kuwait and NATO. This is one of the most recent activities and of training introduced by NATO, and Kuwait participated in that because, as we mentioned earlier, Kuwait has the only regional center of NATO in the region, and thus this is a very important.
Because of the location of the north of
of
the
course,
Arabian Gulf?
Because of the strategic location of Kuwait, and also because of the knowledgeable nature of the Kuwaiti military itself. In other words, Kuwait went through a bloody invasion, and its military has been known for its capabilities. So the cooperation is not just for providing weapons and so, but also providing exchange of information. NATO itself can also benefit from the military experience of Kuwait and also the rest of the region.
That the training,
yes,
that it might be a joint operation between NATO forces as well as the Kuwaiti forces and probably the extra forces from the GCC countries.
Yes.
Do you think that is going to enhance their capability, to give them more experience?
Indeed, it will. It will enhance the capabilities of the Gulf
and also
militaries.
to promote peace and stability in the region, not only enhancing the capabilities, but you know, this is who we are. You better be aware of us. Something like that.
Indeed, it will, and it will guarantee, let's say, our regional security. It will strengthen our militaries, especially in the region, because being an ally, being a cooperative partner with NATO, basically guarantees NATO's contribution to upholding the security of the region. So it's a mutual respect, it's a mutual cooperation that will benefit both parties. And in our region, especially within the context of the Russian and Ukrainian war, within the conflict in Palestine, within the conflict in Sudan, you can understand that security threats have increased. Threats to the regional security has increased, and thus we are in need of closer relations with this very famous and very important military alliance, NATO.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, your luck, because there's another break for you coming up, because we have a very important phone calls on the line. Please stick around. Let's take this phone call. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have prepared an exclusive insight from renowned political analyst Aziz Fahmy, all the way from the United States, to be more specific, in Washington, D.C., who will shed the light on the importance of the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative and the pivotal role which Kuwait plays within it. Mr. Fahmy, expert analysis, will showcase how the initiative strengthens the international collaborations and regional security, with Kuwait at the forefront of these efforts. Stay with us. We will play this insightful statement.
The Istanbul Cooperation Initiative built bridges between NATO and the Gulf states. This opportunity opened all kind of economic, strategic, intelligence cooperation between the member state of the Gulf and the member state of NATO. This is huge opportunity. It's gonna be, Kuwait's gonna reap this in the future, in the near future, because, when countries feel that they are related to each other in the sphere of, international stability and security, they tend to be more cooperative with one another. And that is going to be seen in terms of how Kuwait in the long run will benefit from this initiative. But that is the environment in which this initiative was created, to think anew of the world environment, the regional environment, and how to deal with new threats like terrorism. And so, in a sense, when one think that Kuwait became a central for this initiative, is extremely strategic move on the part of the leadership, because it makes Kuwait is the center of this new cooperation understanding between the West and the Gulf. And of course, it enhanced the ability of Kuwait to play its role in achieving stability in this region. Kuwait made itself the center of the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative. It is the coordinator. It is the organizer. Everything goes through Kuwait, start with Kuwait and end with Kuwait. That is extremely important role and enable Kuwait to be more effective in the region as a major player in what's happening in its region. There's no doubt about that. Terrorism is one of the challenges that face the international community, and everybody realizes that no one country alone can challenge and defeat terrorism. So by definition, defeating terrorism needs cooperation between nation states. So that's why the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative is one of these examples that will create bridges between different regions, different political structure, to create environments that enable the countries to effectively compete terrorism. From international perspective, Kuwait is very impressive example of how international cooperation can help one country to face a challenge like what Kuwait faced under the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. It was the international cooperation with the Kuwaiti people who fought against the Iraqi occupation and who managed to achieve liberation. So without international cooperation, United States, England, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and so many other countries, without this cooperation, Kuwait cannot achieve what it has achieved. So Kuwait is a shining example of the need for international cooperation and how international cooperation, in fact, can help nations to achieve its own goals. And that's what's happening here in the case of Kuwait.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a political analyst, Aziz Fahmy. Would like to thank him so much for this illumination from him. As we all know, Kuwait's strategic geopolitical position and its dedication to maintaining regional and global stability have made it an essential partner for international organizations like NATO. Though not a NATO member, that was the state of Kuwait, has achieved a unique and respected status within the alliance through cooperation in military, security, and diplomatic efforts. This cooperation is part of Kuwait's border foreign policy for ensuring its security and contributing to peace and stability in the Gulf and beyond. Here's more with this following report.
Kuwait's collaboration with NATO dates back to the early 2000s, when both parties sought to enhance dialogue and cooperation on security issues. This partnership formally began when Kuwait joined NATO's Istanbul Cooperation Initiative in 2004, a framework designed to foster practical cooperation with countries in the Gulf region. The initiative was intended to enhance security in the region through political dialogue, defense reform, crisis management, and military cooperation. The relations between Kuwait and NATO have witnessed continuous development and cooperation. In 2006, Kuwait hosted the NATO meeting under the title NATO and Gulf Countries, Facing Common Challenges through the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, as the first non-member country to do so. In 2012, Kuwait proposed hosting and operating ICI Regional Center in Kuwait during the NATO Council meeting in Brussels, which was welcomed by the NATO summit in Chicago, US. In 2014, Kuwait joined the Individual Partnership and Cooperation Program, and subsequently hosting the meeting of NATO's Political Advisory Group in 2015 and 2018, and NATO Council meeting for the 15th anniversary of the ICI in December 2019. In 2016, Kuwait and NATO designed the Military Transit Agreement, and in January 2017, the NATO ICI Regional Center was inaugurated in Kuwait. Kuwait has always been a firm advocate for regional stability, and its alliance with NATO was an extension of its broader foreign policy objectives. The establishment of NATO Regional Center in Kuwait in 2017 was a watershed moment in their relations, providing a platform of joint training, consultation, and further cooperation on shared security challenges. The state of Kuwait has participated in various NATO-led exercises and security forums, contributing to its reputation as a reliable partner in addressing regional and global security concerns. Although the collaboration started as primary military, over time it has expanded to include diplomatic, cybersecurity, and defense reform engagements. Despite being non-member, Kuwait has managed to carve out a unique position within NATO's broader strategy for the Middle East. As a member of the ICI, Kuwait has access to NATO expertise in areas such as counterterrorism, defense modernization, and strategic planning.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on our live coverage entitled Kuwait and ICI, 2 decades of cooperation. Our dear viewers, throughout its history, Kuwait has been a steadfast advocate for peace, stability, and non-interference in the internal affairs of other nations, specifically in times of conflict. These core and the principles remain at the heart of its foreign policy, with a proven track record for promoting diplomacy and peaceful resolution. That's why we have Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi, always welcome and in my heart and in our studio.
Thank you.
Sir, we all know that Kuwait is well known for their diplomacy and their policy in holding the stick in the middle, not to lean to this side nor the other side, always advocating for diplomacy and security and stability in the region as well as the world. Why do you think that this kind of the cooperation and the collaboration with NATO would benefit us as well as it will benefit NATO as an entity?
I think in regards to the benefits of NATO, the cooperation with Kuwait will guarantee the use of our strategic location in the region. In addition to this, it will also benefit NATO to have stronger ties with the rest of the Gulf region countries, because historically Kuwait, as we mentioned earlier, joined the initiative in 2004, and of course Kuwait, as you mentioned
so
earlier,
there is an initiative in the horizon. This is from your own perspective, correct?
Yeah, I think in the very near future we will witness stronger ties with NATO, not just in strategic cooperation and military training or an exchange of information, but in other words, we can look at the NATO regional center as a platform where the countries of the Arabian Gulf can have more say, if you like, in resolving, say, Middle Eastern countries. NATO itself, NATO's presence in the region itself will guarantee the interests of NATO members, say European countries and Western countries in general, and which will also uphold the security of the whole region, because as we know, the Middle Eastern region, in addition to its strategic location, it also has so many natural, if you like, resources, especially oil, coal, and other opportunities for new emerging economies. So NATO looks at the region not just as a military location that is strategic and important to the NATO members, but also as a future partner of the new emerging economies. The new phase, I think, of our cooperation with NATO will witness, in addition to deeper security cooperation, exchange of information, fighting terrorism, we'll see more involvement of NATO countries in reforming the educational systems in the region, and also in strengthening military cooperation on the ground, maybe building new bases in the region by NATO members and so on. So it's really a very if you like, important cooperation, and we in Kuwait understand that or understood that, and that is why we became the first country to join the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative in 2004, because we knew we understood also the strategic importance and the future, if you like, of this organization and its role in our region.
Now, the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, this is the ICI, this is exactly the main focal of our special program right here. Yes. Based on principles of the inclusiveness, and also it's about the initiative of especially combating, that's number one, terrorism, yes, preventing the proliferation, weapons of mass destruction, and etc. Now the question is, how can the state of Kuwait honestly enhance and its counterattacks to avoid any risk securities in the future? How we are going to benefit from these things and put it on the ground and be in front of us?
I think our contribution to to our cooperation with NATO will, if you like, we as Kuwaitis can introduce our knowledge about fighting terrorism, if you like, in our region. NATO itself will have an outreach in its security cooperation with Kuwait, because Kuwait has knowledge about the issue of terrorism. It has, if you like, experience and expertise that can strengthen the international fight against terrorism in particular. And because terrorism is basically a trans-border issue. In other words, it threatens the security of European countries, African countries. So in dealing or in helping NATO deal with this trans-border threat, we basically help NATO strengthen its own security, and also at the same time we can benefit from the different agencies within NATO to strengthen our policing in Kuwait, to strengthen our fight against terrorism, to improve our police force in Kuwait in particular, and also in improving our military by continuing to have military training with NATO and so on. So it's really a very bright future, a very important and significant relationship with NATO, and we should maintain that. We should feel proud about being the first country to join this Istanbul Cooperation Initiative.
Something like that. I believe that we are almost done, but we have something else before we let you go. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move on to this insightful interview by Lieutenant General Max Nelson, Commander of NATO Defense College.
Yeah, the partnership between NATO and Kuwait goes back 20 years. It has been extremely successful because of the mutual interest, the mutual benefits, and the mutual trust we have built over the years. The NATO and the ICI Regional Center is actually a proof to that very thing. At the Washington Summit, the NATO allies agreed a new action plan for partners in ways of strengthening the partnership, more dialogue, more result-oriented, more visibility, more mutuality. I'm here as a representative of NATO and the NATO Defense College for two reasons. First and foremost, to contribute and participate in the modular short course, a course run by the NATO Defense College, here along with and together with the NATO ICI Regional Center, for the benefit of course members from the entire region. The region is extremely important to NATO, and hence it's extremely important to me as the commandant of the NATO Defense College. The second part is to walk the talk after summit, to promote the partnership, to build trust, to build friendships, to build network. The value added in the very top level is we build human interoperability. We provide the possibilities for people to meet, discuss, build a better understanding. So with this better understanding, we can identify areas of common interest, and then we can decide to work on areas of common interest to mutual benefit. So in short, we are trying to discuss with partners from the region to understand what are your interests, what are the interests and challenges as seen by the NATO partners. With this understanding, we can combine and identify areas of common interest, and then we can decide to work on that. And if I may, that feature is more important than ever. If you look across the challenges that is facing us all across the world, none of us can do this alone. It is without doubt, none of us can do this alone. So we have to come together to tackle our common challenges, and that is actually the basis that I create as the Commandant of the NDC through the NATO Defense College and through the cooperation activities we're conducting today here at the NERC. First and foremost, I think it's extremely important to commemorate the 20 years of the ICI, the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative. That is extremely important, and I know for sure that from the NATO side, we are very appreciative that His Royal Highness have taken this initiative to commemorate this. What I sincerely hope will be the outcome is that we take the first steps into a new approach, a stronger approach to the partnership between NATO and countries and partners in the region. I think the challenges we are all looking at deserves a stronger approach. It deserves more constructive dialogue. It deserves more results. It deserves more visibility. And the final bit is to make good use of the UN General Assembly to create that visibility. So I would say I'm immensely appreciative from the step taken, and I think the successful cooperation between NATO and the ICI deserves that visibility.
Folks, we're still here live coming to you from KTV2 with Dr. Khalid Al-Janfawi. Sir, briefly, we have almost run out of time, but there is something going around in my head. Yeah. Do you think in the near future Kuwait will become a permanent member in NATO?
I think with the with such a prediction, one needs needs to understand that as long as NATO establishes bases in the region, and especially Kuwait, in other words, as many bases that can be established in the region, as more opportunities for joining as an official member of NATO, because ultimately NATO needs to have something on the ground, especially military bases. So in order to allow NATO to have bases in the region, especially say in our Gulf region, we also need to NATO needs to understand also that the Gulf region countries aspire to be permanent members of NATO. So I think ultimately within the next decade or so,
we will, I love this word, aspire.
Yeah, we will see this membership coming.
Let's hope so. Dr. Al-Janfawi, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me thank you in front of everybody. Dr. Al-Janfawi, a very renowned political analyst. On behalf of me and everybody else, would like to thank you so much for being with us and a delightful exchange of information as you enlighten us of all the depth of the relationships between the state of Kuwait and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. As we wrap up tonight's special episode entitled Kuwait and ICI, 2 decades of cooperation, we have taken and tackled the relationship between Kuwait and NATO, a partnership grounded in shared security, mutual respect, and vision for a safer future. Thank you so much for being with us, insightful decision, and we hope this live coverage has provided you a valuable insights into the strategic alliance. Until the next time, stay good, enjoy the rest of the night. I'm Ahmed Al-Wasmi, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.